What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the late night edition of the NFL Experts. I'm Wayne G, joined as always by Mark D, and joining us special today, a guest, a friend, a colleague, a podcast host, a TV producer and personality, and a Chicago Bears fan, Brandon Combs. Thank you for joining the show.
Hey, no problem, guys. Thanks for having me. Sorry again that I was running late, held you guys up a little bit, but
Well,
appreciate you
apologize to
having
the
me.
fans. So they're the ones who are mad.
Yeah, right on for coming on, Brandon.
Look, I'm a Bears fan, so I'm used to just pissing off fans.
Oh, okay. Mark, how are you doing today?
I'm good, man. It's kind of nice doing a late night one for a change. I gotta admit.
Well, that's because you're in Colorado, so you say late night, 7 p.m. It's 9 o'clock here.
Yep, you guys are the ones that are gonna be going to bed later, not me.
So I do have to say that obviously we have a great show, tons of stuff to talk about, the NFL draft, Patrick Mahomes versus Tom Brady, the NIL, all kinds of really cool, controversial stuff to get Brandon's takes because he makes me look so smart. But before we get into all of that, please make sure you are following us on social media. That is at NFL Experts Pod, experts plural, at NFL Experts Pod on Twitter, on Instagram, on YouTube, on Facebook, on TikTok, everywhere, and NFL Experts Pod at Gmail. If you want to email us, we are an interactive show. So, with all of the pleasantries out of the way, I did want to kick things off, Brandon, with the Chicago Bears. Mostly, actually, before I kick off that,
the Bears.
Why don't you talk to people? I mentioned all the things that you do, but obviously, if people really like your appearance here, where else can they see and hear more of you?
So you can check us out on Combs and Fitz Windy City Sports Talk. We go live every Monday night. We're on YouTube, we're on Twitch, we're on Facebook, all the other platforms that you want to catch us on, all your podcast platforms as well. And we do all sorts of stuff there. We're going to be doing a live draft night show on draft night one of the draft. We're going to be live from Dave and Buster's over here in Chicago. So it'll be a good night. It'll be a lot of fun. So anybody who's looking for some good draft coverage that doesn't involve ESPN, come check us out.
All right. And as far as television, you do the autograph show, right?
Yeah, so we do Ultimate Autographs. I host for them. I produce for them. I'm also producing for WBIG Radio over here in Chicago as well. Doing some sports stuff, man. I finally took a chance, went after my dream, and I caught it. So living the dream right now.
Well, I did play high school football, and a lot of the ladies did call me WBIG, if you know what I'm saying.
That you never got called that once. You got WSMALL.
That's too many call letters. All right. So first, we're going to dive into the Chicago Bears. That is your team. They have the number one pick in the NFL draft. Now, one of the things I thought was interesting here is that every draft that I've known you for, every draft that you've ever covered, you have crapped on the number one pick. You said the number one pick is going to be a bust. Every year, it doesn't matter who it is. Exactly.
And I've been right every year, Wayne.
Well, this year you were saying Caleb Williams is going to be a bust, but I feel like as reality has set in that they're going to take him, I feel like you've softened your stance a little bit.
I wouldn't say I'm not going to say Caleb Williams is going to be a bust, but it's same thing. We go back to let's go back to the draft where you and I really started talking about the draft, right? And that was the draft when Trevor Lawrence came out, and that's when you and Sully were over there, and your guy Sully is Mr. Oh, if I could build a quarterback in a lab, I would come out with Trevor Lawrence. Okay, so you would come out with 58 touchdowns to 39 interceptions, and a guy who can't beat a good defense. That's what you would come out with. I don't believe that Caleb Williams, unless he goes like the Bears are setting him up for success. I will say that the Bears are setting him up for success. I think that any quarterback coming into this situation should be able to succeed if they're going to be a good NFL quarterback. I believe that Justin Fields would be able to succeed had they kept him instead of going with the number one pick and taking Caleb Williams. I believe he would have been set up for success. So that's why I've softened my stance. I don't believe that Caleb Williams going into, a situation like the Chicago Bears or even like, let's say the Washington Commanders, whatever you want to call them now, going into that situation, I don't think that would be a great situation for him to be successful. to be fair to you, before all of this stuff happened, before the Bears finally just decided they were going to get with 2024 NFL styles and decide to start building an offense, to be fair, I said the Bears drafting any quarterback would be a wasted draft pick, because in the last 40 years, they've never had a quarterback see past their rookie contract. They've never developed a quarterback. And even with Caleb Williams, whether it's Caleb Williams, whether it would have been Justin Fields, whether it's Drake May, whether it's Bo Nix, whether it's any of these other guys, whoever they take, if we missed on the coaching staff again, it doesn't matter. Because the coaching staff has been the Bears' problem for 40 years. Not draft development, not talent evaluation. It has been the coaching staff that they've missed on. So I think we've got it right. I believe in Ryan Poles. I believe in Kevin Warren. I believe in the things that they're doing. I like a lot of the trades that they're making. I've got to see a little bit more. I call it BTSD. It's Bears traumatic stress disorder. So I have to see it on the field before I will believe it. But right now, they're doing all the right things.
Brandon, I'm glad that you mentioned the stuff about the coaches, because that's been the question mark for me this whole time, is why now? Why are they all of a sudden developing their offense for Caleb Williams? Is it him? Is it Ryan Poles that is making the change? Is it all the above? You live in Chicago. You tell me.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So here in Chicago, one of the things that we talk about a lot on Windy City Sports Talk is how there is no ownership in this city that wants to win. There is no ownership in this city that treats their team like they are in a big market city. We're in the third largest market in the country. Yet we've got plans from owners that are like the Tampa Bay Rays, talking about, oh, we like the Tampa Bay Rays model. Well, no. You need to like the Los Angeles Dodgers model. You need to like the Boston Red Sox model or the New York Yankees model. You need to like that model where you spend money and develop your system. You shouldn't be looking at it that way. You shouldn't be small-minded because you're in such a large market. The Blackhawks this year have been an abysmal mess, but that stadium is filled night in and night out, because this is one of the greatest sports cities in the world, and we continue to have these owners that do this. Now, when it comes to the coaches, you're talking about, I believe that Ryan Poles went and got his yes man. And that's why the only explanation you can honestly give me as to why you would give Eberflus a whole nother coaching staff, give him a whole nother quarterback, do all of this stuff, fire everybody except for him, and keep going with this. And I know the Bears like to spin it. Oh, well, he did great with the defense in the second half of the season. No, they went and got Montez Sweat the second half of the season, and that really helped. Don't forget that this defense that he did so well with lost 3 games in the fourth quarter with leads in situations that no other team in the history of the game had lost. And he did that 3 times with that defense. And people want to keep talking about how great his coaching is. I'm very suspect with it. I like the coaches that they've built around him. I think Ryan Poles has had a lot to do with that. And I just kind of think Matt Eberflus right now is his yes man.
So then you do like Shane Waldron as the OC for Caleb?
I do like Shane Waldron as the OC. And here's why. Because if the Bears struggle this year, if they struggle, Shane Waldron, which I'm surprised that Seattle didn't hire him to be their head coach, but Shane Waldron now, if the Bears struggle, you're not going to be looking at Caleb Williams looking at a new OC next year. You're going to be looking at at Caleb Williams looking at his OC becoming the head coach, who will still be running the offense. He'll still be a part of this program, and I just think that that's a smart business model to have. Now, if Shane Waldron isn't the guy and they missed again, I don't know. I mean, I might just go get a Lions jersey at this point.
Well, I want to quote you again, because another quote that you've said to me is, and you said to your fans as well on your show, because I watch your show, you said, if the Bears trade Fields and the number 1 pick, I'm going to burn it all down. Right. And I'm going to tease a little bit. We're going to talk about your quarterbacks list in a minute, but Caleb Williams is not your number 1 quarterback. That's Drake May. So let's say that the Bears do trade the number 1 pick to the Commanders, because they have Kingsbury there who likes Williams. They take Williams at 1, and then the Bears take Drake May at 2, which is your number 1 quarterback. Are you burning it down?
Well, like I'm gonna take a quote from you. We don't live in what ifs, right? We don't live in. And this morning there was actually a report that came out that the Bears turned down a trade from the Commanders for the number 1 pick.
I heard that.
The Bears aren't moving off the number 1 pick. They're going to take Caleb Williams. If they were to, though, let's go with the if scenario. If they were to, and they were to go Drake May, or you teased it a little bit, but if they were to go with any of the other quarterbacks that I like higher than a lot of other quarterbacks and a lot of other people like them, I still would be in the same situation, because I don't care if they went out and got Tom Brady reincarnated. If they did not get it right with the coaching staff, it's not going to matter. So I think that the Bears are set up to where if they were to draft Drake May, if they were to draft Jaden Daniels, if they were to draft Bo Nix, if they were to draft Michael Penix Jr. or Caleb Williams, they're in that situation where they're going to be able to succeed. The wide receiving core already, without Keenan Allen even stepping on the field yet, is already the best wide receiving core the Bears have ever had. The best wide receiving core the Bears have ever had. We got a guy last year in DJ Moore where he had played his first 5 years in Carolina. And if he had those same numbers that he had in Carolina in Chicago in his first 5 years, he would already be the Bears' leading wide receiver in the history of the team. That's saying something. Our crazy. Top 2, the Bears' top 2 wide receivers, the Bears' top 2 leaders in receiving yards all time are running backs. That's how bad it has been offensively here in Chicago. And it's time. It's time for the Bears to have a good offense. It's time for the Bears to have a good offensive line. It's time for the Bears to live in 2024, where you have to have a high-powered offense if you want to win.
Now, I'd said in a show a little while ago, we talked about Keenan Allen. You mentioned them trading for Keenan Allen, right? Last year, Keenan Allen had 108 catches for 1,243 yards. He only played 13 games. Yes. If you multiply his averages times 17 games, he would have had 141 catches and 1,625 yards. It's possible the Bears just traded for the best receiver in the NFL.
It is possible, and it's going to be interesting to see how they move forward with that wide receiver room, because right now Tyler Scott is your number 3 and Velus Jones is your number 4, and you talked about me burning some things down. If we go into the season where Tyler Scott is number 3 and Velus Jones is number 4, I am burning down Hallis Hall. I will send mail bombs. I am not afraid. You cannot put your because you know that Keenan Allen's going to miss 2 or 3 games. He misses 2 or 3 games every year. It's just it's part of his body, the way he plays. He puts his body through hell. You've got to go out and you've got to get a guy. Not only do you got to get a guy that Keenan Allen and DJ Moore can mentor and bring along, who can probably be your number 2 next year, because Keenan Allen's only on a 1-year deal. You've got to get some guys in that room that you can depend on to catch the football when Keenan Allen is gone.
Mark, any thoughts?
I do have a thought. So my question, I was talking to Wayne off air, is what is the one thing that the Bears have to have in this draft, not Caleb Williams?
A center. You have to draft a center. I mean, me and my co-host go back and forth all the time. I keep telling him if one more time if he mentions left tackle, I'm going to punch him in the throat. He wants a left tackle so bad that it hurts him. I think that we are okay with Braxton Jones. I don't think Braxton Jones is great by any stretch of the imagination. As a matter of fact, I think he got exposed in Week 17 versus the Green Bay Packers. We've all seen the tape of the Braxton shuffle where the guy he's supposed to block breaks through the line and he just keeps going and blocking the air. So yes, I do think that you can upgrade at Braxton Jones, but center is a real problem. They went out this year, they signed 2 centers, or actually they traded for 1 center, traded a 5th round pick to the Bills to get Ryan Bates, and then they got the kid, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, from the Rams. As a free agent, they signed him to a 1-year deal. He was like the 6th best center. And the reason why you go and get that guy in free agency on a 1-year deal is because you're going to go and get somebody that you can develop and that you can bring up with Caleb Williams, because you need a good center with a young quarterback. You need a center that can read defenses, that can take the pressure off of a young quarterback. Center is probably the most undervalued position in the NFL. I really think that, and that's where number 9 for me is more of the what do the Bears do? Do they trade up to go after, Malik Neighbors or Rome Odunze? Or if those guys are already gone, do they trade back and try to get a second round pick in return for number 9, and at 12 or 13 or 14 go and get Jackson Powers Johnson, which is the route that I think that they will go if they can't get one of the wide receivers.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned number 9, because my next pick was about a conversation that we had where you said there is no way that they stay at number 9. If they stay at number 9, Wayne, I'm buying you a new set of golf clubs.
That's not what I said.
And I said, okay, well, I'll take that. But let me ask you this, though, because I think that they could stay at number 9. Obviously, we know it depends on how the board falls. We know it, because they might not. I'm going to ask you for 2 to 3 names that if they're there at 9, it's worth staying at 9.
Okay. Oh, you want me to come, or I thought you were going to come to me with 3 names.
I want to get names from you.
Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze, and Joe Alt.
Ooh, Joe Alt would be.
I think those are the 3 guys that if they stay at number 9 and get them, I'm not mad at it. And then my co-host can shut up because then they got their left tackle. But I like Joe Alt a lot. I know he's what are they? They're throwing it around all the time. He's a generational talent at left tackle, right? Yep. There's 15 generational talents in this draft. It's crazy. So I would be okay with those 3 names. And obviously, if for some reason Marvin Harrison Jr. falls to 9, obviously, but that's not happening. I would be okay with all of that. One thing I'm not okay with, Wayne, and I heard this from you come out of your mouth a couple weeks ago. The Bears trading to Washington at 2 and taking JJ McCarthy. If that happens, Wayne, I'm not burning down the city. I'm coming to your house and burning your house down. You better get your wife and kid out of the house, because I'm going to burn your house down if they trade to number 2 and take JJ McCarthy.
No, yeah, that was my prediction, mainly because I think McCarthy is screaming up draft boards. I understand why he is. I was talking to Mark about it off the air, which is that basically he's a guy. We know that quarterbacks in the NFL don't win until they learn how to become game managers. Only game managers win in the NFL. Well, he came from a system where he was asked to be a game manager, but he has Brett Favre's right arm. So you've got Brock Purdy with a cannon. It's a perfect setup, especially for a team like the Bears. If you have a good defense, you have a good running game, you have good receivers to throw to. I do think he has some warts. I don't think his footwork is very good. I think he needs to develop more touch on his deep ball. But I think that JJ McCarthy is worthy of a top 3 pick.
How do you know JJ McCarthy has a cannon? You didn't see it in gameplay, right? You saw it at the combine.
Well, both.
Is that where you saw it? You know who else? You know who else had a cannon? Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson had an unbelievable cannon. He made some throws where he just rose up draft boards during draft. JJ McCarthy is a backup in this league. McCarthy is a backup in this league. He's a guy that can hand the ball off if you have a good running back. He is not a guy that you are going to bring in. The Bears, whoever they draft, is starter day 1. And JJ McCarthy is not that guy for any team, let alone the Bears.
And I'm saying that Brock Purdy is a backup who can take his team to the Super Bowl. So it's as a starter. And that's what I'm saying that JJ McCarthy is. He's Brock Purdy, but he's got a better arm. The reason Purdy is a game manager is because he can't throw it deep. McCarthy can.
Why do people keep calling Brock Purdy a game manager? Have you seen
that's what he does.
The guy threw for over 4,000 yards. The guy threw for what, like 30-something touchdowns to like 8 or 9 interceptions this year, didn't he? Why is he a game manager? The Bears have never had a quarterback throw for 4,000 yards. You kidding me? He's Sid Luckman.
Right. But there's a difference between a Tom Brady 4,000 yards and a Michael Vick 4,000 yards, let's say, right? They're different passes. So when you throw for 4,000 yards and you're deadly accurate on those 10 to 15-yard passes versus throwing for 4,000 yards because you're throwing it 40 yards deep every time, it's a different game style. I'm saying Brock Purdy is a game manager because he's great at those nickel and dime passes, but he has guys like Ayuk and Samuel and McCarthy, whatever, McCaffrey, who can take it to the house as soon as they get the ball in their hands, and so that's why he's a game manager. He could throw for 50 touchdowns, but if they're all 15-yard passes that get taken to the house, that's a game manager, no matter how many yards you throw for in the season.
I agree. I mean, I don't look. Brock Purdy. I don't think he's ever thrown one to Mike McCarthy, but maybe. But
No.
McCaffrey and all these guys, yes, he throws short routes and then they run the ball. I guess it's just I mean, Tom Brady made a Hall of Fame career out of it. Tom Brady is the GOAT because of 10-yard routes and being a game manager. There's nothing wrong with being a game manager. I get that. I just, when I've seen some of the throws Brock Purdy has made and some of the plays that he has made in the Super Bowl, going toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes against a very solid Kansas City Chiefs defense, who are also struggling versus the Kansas City Chiefs were struggling versus a very good Niners defense. People forget Brock Purdy led them back twice. He led them back twice. And so I think, yes, in part, you're right. He is a game manager in that sense, where he does throw those 10-yard outs and he does throw a lot of short routes and guys break them open because he's got some playmakers on his team. But he's also he's got a lot more Tom Brady in him than he does Zach Wilson.
And I'm not using game manager as an NFL slur. Like, I'm not trying to dirty it. I just said you can't win a Super Bowl unless you're a game manager. If you don't know how to be a game manager, you're never going to win a Super Bowl. And I think that's why Josh Allen is getting better and better, because he's learning how to manage the game rather than just go out there and sling it like Brett Favre or Tony Romo. The reason Romo never won is he never learned how to manage the game. So I think that you have to be a game manager to win. It's not a dirty word by any means.
Yeah,
I don't want a quarterback who isn't a game manager.
In Josh Allen's defense, he's always been a good game manager. The problem is he just leaves 17 seconds on the board for Patrick Mahomes both times that he lost to him.
Well, I don't know if he's always been a game manager. He was a bit of a gunslinger his first couple of years.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is he will be one of those guys that can lead you downfield, can eat clock. I mean, he did it twice in those playoff losses. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is just Patrick Mahomes. I don't even know how to explain it anymore. For a long time, I thought Patrick Mahomes was just a guy who was, he was really good, but I thought he was a little bit overblown, and I wanted to see how he would do without, having Tyreek Hill and without having a good offense surrounding him. And this year, man, he really stepped it up, having the wide receiver core with the most drops in the league, having the offensive line being the most penalized offensive line in the league, and still won the Super Bowl with that team. Patrick Mahomes is on a different level. So Josh Allen, I think he's always had that game manager in him, and he is a gunslinger. But I think that he's always done a good job of being able to leave you with very little time to come back and beat him.
Mark, what are your thoughts on game managers, JJ McCarthy? I feel like we're leaving you out of the conversation because I'm trying to prove that Brandon doesn't know what he's talking about.
You better have a lot more time.
Me, Wayne, I agree with you that most quarterbacks should be a good game manager, but is it like we do all want that? But then we all do want a guy like Mahomes also, who is amazing. So you just got to pick and choose what you want.
Yeah, Mahomes is like the perfect combination of all of it, right? Like, he's a great game manager, but he's also a great gunslinger, and he's also a guy that can make things happen. And he's also a guy that if he gets breathed on, the refs are going to throw a flag for and give him an automatic first down.
Well, I did want to ask, sticking with the Bears, this is the last question I had really regarding the draft. They have 2 picks after round 1, which is round 3 and round 4. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious if you've given any thought to who you'd like to see them walk away with in rounds 3 or 4, because a couple names I'll throw out there, and you may like both of these names, especially the round 3 name, which is Brendan Rice out of USC. Jerry Rice's kid would be a great number 3 for you. And then I was thinking in round 4, if you wanted to go power running back, Braylon Allen out of Wisconsin, or if you want to go corner, Elijah Jones out of Boston College.
Yeah, I mean, it really just depends on which route they go in the first round, right? Because if you do end up with Joe Alt, you still need a center. It's still a glaring hole. If you don't trade back and you don't end up with a wide receiver, then wide receiver is still a big need. So you're right. Jerry Rice's kid. You've got there's the center out of West Virginia. I can't remember his name.
Zach Frazier. He'll be gone before the 3rd round.
Zach Frazier. No, there was another kid. Maybe it wasn't West Virginia. Maybe it was Penn State.
There's the kid? Bo Limmer out of Arkansas.
Yeah, I don't know if he'll be there in the 3rd round. Do you?
He'll be there in the third or fourth round. Yeah.
Okay. Well, if he's there, then I like Bo Limmer. Who's the other kid I'm thinking of? Drake Nugent. Drake Nugent's the other kid I'm thinking of. Out of Michigan. I don't know why I said Penn State. But there are a couple of centers that if you don't get a center in the first round, it's going to be an absolute need in the third. If you trade back from 9, and you end up with Jackson Powers Johnson out of Oregon, which is what I hope happens, then maybe at that point you have a second round pick as well. Any of the best available tackle, wide receiver, those all are the biggest needs. I know I hear a lot of people talking edge rusher for the Bears at 9. I just don't think edge rusher is an absolute need as much as center and left tackle and wide receiver are on this team. When you have a team that was already the top ranked rushing defense in the league, you have a team that was already the top 5 overall ranked defense in the league. Yes, it would be nice to have an extra, fantastic edge rusher. But I just don't think that it's as big of a need as wide receiver, center, and left tackle are.
Very interesting points. I think it's very interesting that a center is the glaring need. I would have never thought. Like, I was one of the types that was thinking edge for you guys to pair with Sweat. But after you say that, then yeah, maybe they don't need another someone as of much of a need as they do center. So maybe they should trade back.
One of the biggest things for, we heard it for 3 years with Justin Fields and guys, I'm a Justin Fields guy. Like I really believe in this kid. I think he's going to be great wherever he goes and wherever he gets a chance. He's going to be fantastic. I think he's going to beat out Russell Wilson for the starting job this year. I don't think that Russell Wilson is the starter week 1. I think it's going to be Justin Fields in Pittsburgh. I really believe in that kid. But what we've heard is how he has trouble picking up blitzes, how he has trouble reading defenses, how he has trouble calling out, 51's the mic or whatever, they need to do at the line of scrimmage. But
Russell Wilson's not going to help him with any of that.
Well, right. But when you have a really good center, like Jalen Hurts struggled with that too at first. And Jason Kelce took over that. Jason Kelce took over and started calling out the defensive packages. He took the pressure off of Jalen Hurts. And then we saw Jalen Hurts' game elevate. And that's totally what, for me, if you're going to have a young quarterback growing in this system, you need to have a center that can do the same types of things for you.
Well, speaking of quarterbacks, I did want to get into your quarterback rankings for this NFL draft because you blew me away with them on another show. And that was, I'm going to start off with the top 4. You have number 1, Drake May, number 2, Bo Nix, number 3, Jaden Daniels, and number 4, Caleb Williams. I actually think Bo Nix is going to be a second round pick. He could end up in the 3rd round, depending on how the board plays out. And I'm curious, not so much about Drake May. I get the Drake May love. I do. He's 6'4", 220, big arm. He's mobile, right? But talk to me about Bo Nix. Why is Bo Nix your number 2 quarterback?
Well, why is he not more people's number 2 quarterback? I think is a better question. When you look at Bo Nix and it is a better question though, because when you look at Bo Nix and what he's done, it's not just about, the fact of what he did over at Oregon, but it's also what he was able to do when he was at Auburn. When he was at Auburn playing in the SEC, playing against all those top defenses, he spent 3 years over at Auburn. He had really good numbers for an Auburn quarterback. Auburn wasn't really good in 2019, 2020, and 2021. They just weren't. The SEC was run by Alabama. It's run by Georgia. Auburn was just an afterthought those 3 years. They were a very run-heavy offense at Auburn. They've always been a run-heavy offense at Auburn. But he was still able to put up really solid numbers with them. His touchdown to interception ratio was pretty good over the 3 years. I believe, I want to say it was something like 39 to 16 interceptions in those 3 years. But then he gets to Oregon and he really turns it up because he's in a pass heavy offense. They're allowing him to get outside the pocket. They're allowing him to do things that he can do. He's throwing for 3,000, 4,000 yards. He's throwing for 29 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. I believe it was last year. So he had something like 46, 48 touchdowns to only 3 interceptions this year. I mean, his touchdown to interception, he makes the right passes all the time. I watched this kid against Washington get chased out to the right, get chased out to the right, throw across his body on a dart to a wide receiver on the left through traffic, and hit him in the chest for a touchdown pass. This guy makes throws that other guys can't. And I know we talk about Caleb Williams, we talk about the flashy plays, we talk about all of this. A lot of the Caleb Williams flash, a lot of the things that he was able to do, where the one that everybody always oohs and ahs over is where he fumbled the ball, picked it up, and flung it to the back of the end zone to a wide open wide receiver. That guy's not open in the NFL. That guy's not open in the NFL. And chances are when you're not going to have that same amount of time to pick up the ball and throw it in the NFL. I'm looking at footwork. I'm looking at your tenacity. I'm looking at your leadership. I'm looking at all of those things. Caleb Williams has some question marks, and I'm not talking about the pink lipstick and the pink phone case. If you're a good quarterback, you can show up every Sunday for my team in a sundress for all I fucking care. You can show up and do all of that stuff. I don't care as long as you're a good quarterback. The problem that I have with Caleb Williams is just is he mentally tough enough to handle the pressure of any big city, not just Chicago, but Washington, but in any place where they have a rabid fan base? Is he tough enough to handle it when he comes out and he starts out 0-2 or 0-3 and has a couple of rough games? Can he handle that pressure? We saw Justin Fields handle that here in Chicago, and he handled it great. Bo Nix, for me, has always handled the pressure well, whether being at Auburn and dealing with all the stuff he dealt with at the SEC. There was some sort of, I can't remember what it was, but there was a reason why he left Auburn. And I can't remember exactly what it was. There was a whole thing to do, and that's why he enters the transfer portal. But for me, Bo Nix is just, he's better. The reason why he's better than Michael Penix Jr., he hasn't had 2 reconstructed knees like Michael Penix Jr. The reason why he's better than J.J. McCarthy? Well, because he's better than J.J. McCarthy. The reason why, to me, I have him ahead of Jaden Daniels is I just, from watching the two guys play, me personally, I just feel like Jaden Daniels is just a slightly less than what Bo Nix is. And last year, Wayne, when I had CJ Stroud at 1 and Will Levis at 2, you kind of laughed at me then about Bryce Young. When I said that Trevor Lawrence shouldn't be the number 1 overall pick and he's not going to be as good as he was in college, you kind of laughed at me then. So you can laugh at me now if you want, but over the last 3 times when I've told you that a number 1 pick isn't really that good, I've kind of been right.
So you were right that Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Mac Jones, one of them was better than Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah. So I had Justin Fields as my number 1 in that draft.
Well, doesn't Lawrence's numbers better than Justin Fields?
They're a little better. They're not much better. They're a little better.
And he had Urban Meyer for his coach's rookie year.
He had Urban Meyer for his coach's rookie year, but you could talk about Justin Fields had Matt Nagy, who almost got him killed against Cleveland. You could talk about Justin Fields had to deal with 2 years of an offensive coordinator that couldn't develop an offensive scheme to save his damn life. I mean, it's a very different situation. They went to different situations. The same thing when you look at Mac Jones's numbers compared to what Trevor Lawrence's numbers have been. They're damn near identical. And we're running one guy out of town because he took over for the GOAT, and the other guy is hailed as the next best thing because he took over for a failing franchise and got him to a playoff appearance. Like, they're not that he's not. Are you telling me that you believe that Trevor Lawrence is as great as he was touted to be out of college?
He hasn't.
No, because you can't say it. No, you're out of your mind. If he was as good as he was touted to be out of Clemson, they would have won the Super Bowl in Jacksonville.
No, Jacksonville was really bad. They were 1-15. They weren't going to go to the Super Bowl with Trevor Lawrence in the first 3 years.
Well, he was the greatest. If you go into a lab, Wayne, and you build a quarterback, you would build Trevor Lawrence.
And I agree with Sully.
Stupid.
Okay, Brandon, I got a question about Bo Nix. Can we get off the Trevor Lawrence thing for 1 second? I have a question about Bo Nix. I'm really glad that someone out there actually thinks highly of him, because I keep thinking in my head, I'm an NFL guy, I know sports. I watched him play a lot of games. I'm like, this guy's pretty good. I don't understand why he's getting knocked down to the second round. Is it because he's played so long in college? Is it because he played like the quick game in the Pac-12, like Wayne was saying off air, that it's a weak conference? Like, whatever the reason, like, I don't understand why he's getting knocked down. But then the whole reason why I keep thinking about Bo Nix is because he keeps getting paired with us. I keep hearing is he's the next Drew Brees. He'd be perfect for Sean Payton's offense. All this and this and that. So I'm like, is this guy good for us? And so I'm really kind of glad to hear you say that he's the next, like the second best guy, because maybe we can get him. I don't know we will, but they're pairing him to us. So
it's funny that you say that, because I actually have Denver taking him at 12. I think Denver's going to take him at 12. I really do. I think that I think people are right. He pairs well with Sean Payton. He's everything that Sean Payton wants out of a quarterback, and he's really damn good, man. He's really damn good. We talked about Drake May earlier. Wayne G is my number one quarterback. He's Justin Herbert. When I watch Drake May, I'm watching Justin Herbert. He's really, really good. And when I watch Bo Nix, I'm seeing a lot of the same stuff that I'm seeing from Drake May. I'm seeing a lot of the same stuff that you saw from Justin Herbert in college. I'm seeing that type of quarterback. They take him at 12, man. They're getting, to me personally, they're getting a steal, because if they take him at 12, I don't know why, but if they take him at 12, that means JJ McCarthy's already off the board, and somebody screwed up, because JJ McCarthy going in that high in the first round, somebody's screwing up.
Well, I'm going to combat some of the Knicks stuff. Yeah, we'll get off the Trevor Lawrence stuff, and we'll talk about Knicks for a second. So we talked about his stats in Oregon last year, right? Amazing, 77.4%. 4,500 yards, 45 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. I'm going to look back to 2020. And when I say 2020, I don't mean Bo Nix 2020. I mean Mac Jones, 77.4%, 4,500 yards, 41 touchdowns, 44 interceptions. So why is Bo Nix not going to be Mac Jones? Especially when in 2020, when Mac Jones did put up those numbers and Bo Nix did play in the same conference, in the same state as him, he had a 57% completion percentage.
Because Bo Nix is going to go to an organization and a head coach that is going to want him. That's a problem that Mac Jones ran into. He went to an organization, he went to a coach that had a problem with the stuff that he did off the field. Had a problem with him going and asking another a coach, "Hey, what are you seeing out there? What am I doing wrong?" And he didn't like that, so he benches him and all this other stuff. Bill Belichick is probably, you're going to hate hearing this, but it's probably the best thing that the Patriots did for their franchise. Not for, the sentimental reasons, not for Bill Belichick, needing to pass history in a Patriot. I get the history on it. But his head was always there. This is also the same guy that wanted to keep Jimmy G and send Tom Brady packing. There are some things that I love Bill Belichick for, and there's some things where I think he's crazy. Mac Jones got a raw deal. I don't know if Mac Jones is good or not yet, because from what I saw from him in New England, his first year, he was really, really good. And then in his second year, all of a sudden they get a new offensive coordinator and things kind of go haywire. So was it the offensive coordinator? Was it the game plan? Was it the fact that they didn't want him to succeed? It was the same thing that I saw here with Justin Fields. He was not set up for success. And when you're not set up for success as a quarterback, it's really tough to succeed.
Totally I'll say as somebody who watched every single one of Mac Jones's games of his career, I've watched every single career game he's had. Yes, he's the answer. We do know that he's not a good quarterback. And one of the reasons you mentioned him getting benched because Bill didn't like his attitude or the stuff he did off the field, it wasn't because he had 2 touchdowns to 6 interceptions through 3 games. That's not why he got benched. He got benched because of his attitude, right? And by the way, he got benched,
2 touchdowns to 6 interceptions because of the offensive game planning, because of the play calling. Like, not all of that was on him. They were making some of it was on him. Other jersey? No, you don't make him throw it to the other jersey, but it's same thing that the Bears were running into again with Justin Fields. I saw a lot of the stuff that you're talking about. I get it. But I saw a lot of that same stuff here in Chicago where people just can't see past it. Well, he threw an interception. Well, the wide receiver stopped running the route. or they had two wide receivers running the same route on the same side of the field. Yeah, of course that's going to get cut off. It's the same type of stuff. Mac Jones was in an offense where either it might not have been all Bill Belichick. It might have been the offensive coordinator too, just not wanting him. Hey, this isn't my guy. So let's see if I can get the other guy in here. I think that happens in the NFL more than we think.
And what I can say is that it really was Mac Jones's fault, because I'm telling you, I watched these games, and what I'm saying is, like, this guy threw more passes off his back foot while fading away than any other quarterback in history. And he only did it in 2 years. Like, every pass he threw, he was fading away like a Michael Jordan fadeaway shot, but he was throwing a pass up in the air into two safeties. It was always bad decisions. It wasn't like, nobody was open and he was going to get sacked. Like, it was always bad decisions.
Well, I mean,
and so that was my problem.
There are a lot of guys who throw off their back foot and will just gunsling the ball. I mean, it's Brett Favre made a Hall of Fame career out of it. I mean,
Mac Jones doesn't have Brett Favre's arm.
Right. But how many times did Brett Favre throw for 30 touchdowns but 30 interceptions and never got killed for it because he was Brett Favre?
Or because his team went 12-4 instead of 4-12.
Right. But still, so if your team goes 12-4 and your guy's throwing 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions, but your team goes 4-12 and he throws for let's say 30 touchdowns to 12 interceptions, you're okay with, you'd rather have the guy who goes 30 for 30?
Again, there's context to everything, right? So the Patriots last year had a top 10 defense in the NFL. All their quarterback had to do was not turn the ball over, and their quarterback couldn't do that job.
I feel like we're having the Jameis Winston argument again.
I don't care about Jameis Winston. I'm talking about Mac Jones because I had to puke-induce watch him every game.
I get it. I get it.
Whoever it is.
Yeah. And here's my question. If the next quarterback comes in and is not successful, and if Mac Jones goes on to have a decent NFL career, where did he go? Who got him?
He's a backup in Jacksonville.
Jacksonville. Okay. Oh, that's right. Yeah. That was a crazy trade, by the way. But if he goes to Jacksonville, revitalizes his career, gets traded somewhere else because they're in love with Trevor Lawrence, or let's say he takes over. Let's say he beats out Trevor Lawrence. Let's say he's better than Trevor Lawrence.
Okay,
then
let's say that I can breathe in space.
That's all we can do about what the future. That's what you're trying to do.
You can
right?
say, what if Trevor Lawrence gets hurt and Mac Jones steps in? We can say he's never going to beat out Trevor Lawrence ever in any universe.
Oh, okay. You also said he was going to be the
Trevor
greatest thing since sliced bread.
He's got a cannon for an arm. He's mobile. Yeah. Everything that Mac Jones isn't, Trevor Lawrence is, in a good way.
You also said if he drank from a cup of water, it would turn into wine. Like, I don't.
No. I can turn water into wine because I'm Jesus Christ. But not everyone can do that.
You might make me say Jesus Christ a lot, but you're not Jesus Christ.
So, Brandon, you don't think JJ's a first-round pick?
I don't think JJ McCarthy's a starter. So, no, I would not take him in the first round. Yeah, a guy like JJ McCarthy is a second or third round pick because he's a guy that is going to need a year, 2, maybe 3. If you're picking him high in the first round, you're in trouble if he's your starter day 1. In my opinion, I could be wrong. Look, I'm on my 3rd wife, man. I've been wrong before, so I could be wrong again. But we're gonna have to wait and see. I mean, that's all we can do. For me, my money is on JJ McCarthy being a career backup.
And I will say this, I am hardly ever wrong, or have hardly ever been wrong in 44 years, which is why my family has a national holiday every time I am wrong, because it happens like once every 10 years. But I will say this, speaking of hot takes, let's get into some hot takes here. Brandon, would you agree there's 2 types of hot takes, right? There's a take that's hot, but you truly believe it. Mm-hmm. And then there's a take that's just clickbait hot, right?
Well, yeah, I worked with Buck for how long?
Well, I'm glad that you're throwing shade, because I was about to throw some shade on you. So I obviously say that Wilt Chamberlain's the greatest basketball player of all time. I truly believe that, but I also understand it's a hot take, because and
you're
on
wrong,
the other side,
but okay.
Well, there is no wrong in the GOAT debate. So, and then there is clickbait, like the best baseball player ever to wear number 5 is Nomar Garciaparra. And I think that is your take on Bo Nix. I'm curious if that's a Nomar Garciaparra take or if it's a Wilt Chamberlain take.
It's a Will Chamberlain take. I truly believe that Bo Nix is the second best quarterback in this draft. I mean, I watched a ton of college football. I watch a ton of NFL football. I watch a lot of the things that guys do, which is why I didn't think Trevor Lawrence was going to be successful in the NFL. Now, look, I'll tell you this much. As much as I give you for saying Trevor Lawrence isn't as good as you thought he was going to be, he's not as bad as I thought he was going to be. So I can admit that he's not as bad as I thought he was going to be coming out of college. But Bo Nix, I 110% believe in him. If the Bears took Bo Nix at number 1, I would actually be very happy.
I guess I would be too, because it means Caleb Williams might fall to 3.
No chance. Washington would snatch him up quick.
Any thoughts, Mark, on hot takes before we get into the hottest take on the internet right now?
Yes, I do believe that they are both. That there are some takes, like you said, that you believe, and that some people just think they're a hot take, like the Will Chamberlain thing. I heard today briefly on one of the ESPN shows that this guy was saying that Caitlin Clark isn't like one of the best generational players in college basketball, and I didn't even listen to what his reasoning was, because it was just so. I wasn't even going to listen to it. It was like, either way, whatever he was going to say was wrong. And I feel like that was just one of those takes that he just was trying to get ratings, trying to get people to draw on the show. So he said that, and I don't think he truly believes that. And that's one of those takes where, like, I guarantee you he just wanted viewers. But then,
yeah,
who knows? Maybe he actually truly believes that. Like, I don't know.
The Caitlin Clark hate, the Angel Reese hate, like it just, none of it makes sense. They are both phenomenal talents. Those are the people who are talking about that right now is exactly what you're talking about, clickbait stuff. Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese are taking women's basketball to a whole new level, almost to the fact where I'm excited because the Chicago Sky are picking at 8, and I believe Angel Reese is going to be there, and I believe that that's who they're going to take, and it means I will be going to some Chicago Sky games this upcoming season. So I'm really starting to get into women's college. I watched the whole women's college tournament because of Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. Like I watched that entire tournament. And so, I mean, there's hundreds of thousands of people would have watched that tournament anyway, but Caitlin Clark was there. So 18 million people average watched it. And that says something.
I think the hot takes around Caitlin Clark isn't whether or not she's a generational talent. It's whether or not she can compete with men. And the answer is no. And because I saw somebody say, who's the better player, Caitlin Clark or Bronny James? I said, it's Bronny James. It's not even a question. Obviously, she's better in the women's game than he is in the men's game, but put them up against each other and it's a shutout.
No way.
I don't know about shutouts. I mean, she can shoot.
Oh, it's a shutout. Yeah, and he's 6'3" and he can push her around.
Yeah, but he doesn't know how to play defense. His dad is LeBron James.
Exactly.
I'm telling you, if you watch him play defense, he actually does know how to play defense. And anybody can play defense on a girl.
He would go to she would go to shoot it and he would just fall down and hope to get a call.
Okay. Yeah. I don't think she'd get a shot off.
Okay. I think you're wrong.
Right. So, well, you can
tell your family tell your family it's time for that national holiday.
Yeah. I mean, I will always point out that men are better than women at basketball, flat out. Obviously, it's a case-by-case basis because I'm not better than Caitlin Clark, but I'm saying that she's not better than a single college men's basketball player, not one of them.
About 10 years ago, you would have told me that you were better than Caitlin Clark at basketball.
I might have been. When I had my six-pack abs, that's a long ways away.
Yeah, 6-pack of Bud Light, maybe.
Yes, 100 pounds ago, I was a very good basketball player. Yeah. Actually, I don't even want to go down too much of a rabbit hole, but I did have Brandon play a basketball game with us once in our men's league. I thought he was going to have a heart attack. It was hilarious.
Yeah, I was dying. I'm not a basketball player by any stretch of imagination. I tried getting Wayne to come play a softball game with me, but he wouldn't do it.
Ugh, I am not a softball player by any stretch of the imagination.
See that I can get into.
Let's talk about.
So I was gonna say. So basically, you're like Jake Paul. You'll let people come to your environment, but you're not going to theirs.
100%. Yes.
Okay. All right. Perfect.
Yeah. All right. So we talk about hot takes, the GOAT debate. All right. Let's start off with a lot of people out there on Facebook. This is every NFL group I'm in. I see a post a day where it's Tom Brady versus Patrick Mahomes, and somebody saying Patrick Mahomes is the greatest quarterback of all time. Now, I want to put it to you because I do think that he is trending that way. I do think that his first 6 years as a starter is better than Tom Brady's first 6 years as a starter. And I do think that right now, Patrick Mahomes is better than Tom Brady was in his best year ever. But until you have 60, 70, 100,000 passing yards and 500 touchdowns, he's got some numbers he has to achieve before he's the GOAT, in my opinion. So I always say that Brady's the best of all time. Mahomes is the best I've ever seen. I want to get your thoughts on the Brady versus Mahomes.
So for me this year, I had Brady 1, I had Manning 2, I had Marino 3, and I had Joe Montana 4, and I had Mahomes 5. Mahomes jumped all the way up to 2 for me after this year because of the job that he did. Able to win that Super Bowl this year with that team was a remarkable move for him. Like he is, you're right, he's better than right now than Tom Brady was on his best year. I mean, you're absolutely right. Patrick Mahomes might be the best quarterback we've ever seen. I'm with you. You've got to. I mean, look, 7, go to 10. Like that. That's something. If he wins again this year, if he completes that three-peat, you might have to start changing the tune on who's number 1 and who's number 2, because of what this guy has gone to 4 Super Bowls in his first 6 seasons. He has won 3 of them. The only one he's lost to Tom Brady. So,
and Brady went to 10 of them.
Yeah, and Brady went to 10 of them. So, I just think that if you're going now to 5 in your first 7, especially if you win it, if you complete the three-peat, nobody's ever completed a three-peat ever.
Please don't let that happen.
you're talking about Jim Kelly went to 4 in a row. He just never won any of them. Nobody's ever completed a three-peat where they've won them all. And to me, that's hard to do in the NFL. The fact that it's never been done before shows you how hard that is to do. You might have to start thinking about that if that happens. But if that doesn't happen, then yeah, I mean, you got to have the 100,000 passing yards, 500 touchdowns, all of that other stuff, all those other numbers to surpass him.
Well, I'm curious, Mark, what are your thoughts? I know that obviously you're a Broncos fan, so you don't want Mahomes to become the greatest because of what that entails. But as an NFL expert, what are your thoughts on the Brady versus Mahomes?
I agree with everything that Brandon said about both, about just everything. For me, the one thing I always think about when I think about both of them is they're the quarterbacks that that like you're never out of a game, like never, no matter what. Brady and him always have the will, the drive. No matter what, they will find a way to win the game. I'll give you the perfect example: 28-3 in the Super Bowl. Like that was the most epic comeback for a quarterback in a Super Bowl. And it's just like guys like that. The way they're wired, I don't know what it is, but they're wired the same way in that instance where they're never going to give up on a game and they're never out of a game. And a team should always know that. Whoever's playing them should always know that.
Well, I'll tell you Mark, I'm going to need you to give me your number after this show so that you could talk with my wife, because nobody ever agrees with me as much as you do. So I appreciate this. I never get anybody to agree with me like you have tonight. So I mean, I might have to have you just be my new co-host.
Hey, I'm sorry. Wayne's already got me. Maybe if we make a better deal, I don't know. We'll talk.
I thought you were going to say you were a free agent. That's what I thought you were going to say.
No, I was going to say I'm not a free agent, but like I said, if the contract money talks, we might have to talk.
All right.
Well, I will say where I disagree with you, Brandon, is that where I agree is that I don't think Mahomes has to win 7 to be better than Brady. I think if he finished his career at 4, he can still be better than Brady all time. Because you just said you have Marino over Montana because he's a better passer than Montana was, right?
I have Marino over Montana because Montana said Marino was better than him. Montana says Marino's the greatest of all time. So that's why for me on any list that I have Montana on, Marino's always ahead of him because, hey, you said he was better than you, so I'll take your word for it.
I don't take his word for it. But I will say that I don't think you have to win 7 to be better than Brady. I do think that you can't play a 10-year career and be better than a guy who dominated for 20 years. You just can't, no matter how many you win. Even if he wins 3 in a row, this is where I disagree with you. If he wins 3 in a row, you said, well, you kind of have to have that conversation. He's still not even in the hallway of the conversation. He's not even the hallway that gets to the room of the conversation.
How are you not in the hallway? It's not about winning 3 in a row. It's about winning 5 in your first 7 seasons as a starting quarterback.
Well, 4, because he has 3 right now.
Well, 4,
so
yeah, sorry, 4 in your, but going to 5 in your first 7.
Sure, and that's impressive, but it's still not. You've only played 10 years, or 9 years as a starter. You can't be better than a guy who did it for 20 years and went to 10 Super Bowls because you went 4 for 7.
What does he got to do? Lose 2 to Daniel Jones
to get into the conversation, to be incredibly in the conversation? I feel like he either has to play 5, 7 more years in that range, or he has to win 3 more. One of those two. Doesn't have to be both. One of those two.
Dude, if he wins 3 in a row, that's like you got to have a whole new conversation. Period.
I mean, nobody's ever done that. Wayne.
Number 2.
He's already number 2.
Conversation about number 2.
Who do you have above him right now on your list all time?
Of them.
Wow.
Rodgers, I might have ahead of him.
You would have Drew Brees over him?
Oh, Drew Brees has a career completion percentage of like 73%. He's one of the most accurate quarterbacks ever. Would have and he threw for 5,000. He threw for 5,000 yards like 6 times.
You would have Aaron Rodgers ahead of him. The guy only won a Super Bowl because Jay Cutler decided to ride a bike in the NFC Championship. Yeah, fuck you, Jay Cutler. You. That's the only reason Aaron Rodgers has a damn Super Bowl championship. And you would have him over.
Hey, Brandon, trust me, I know all about Jay Cutler. All right.
Oh, God. I hate him. If I was Kristen Cavalier, I'd have smacked him in the mouth.
Because we talk about what makes up the GOAT. That's the thing, is that we each get to make up our own criteria about what makes the GOAT, right? And it's made up of a lot of different pieces. And for me, there's like career numbers, there's championships, there's comebacks, there's a lot of different things. So you can't just excel at one of those things and go way up and above everybody else. You have to beat everybody else at several of those things. So that's why I think he hasn't beaten the career numbers of Brady, obviously, but he also hasn't beaten the Brees career numbers. He's been more successful in the playoffs. But again, he doesn't have to play.
So then why is Wilt the GOAT over Jordan then?
Because he retired 50 years ago and he still holds 72 NBA records, and Jordan holds like 10. He's the most dominant player in the history of any sport, maybe except for hockey. Even then, maybe even more than Gretzky.
So then Cy Young's the greatest baseball player of all time.
Well, again, I'm not going off career numbers. I'm going to talk about year to year. I'd have to look at how he did year to year versus his competition. If he threw 25 complete games in a year and somebody else threw 20, then no. But if he averaged
the man
50
threw
points per
730 something complete games in his career, that number is never being touched. The man threw freaking how many strikeouts? There's no comparing to Cy Young.
But again, he pitched for like 30 years. So that's why I'm saying I don't look at career numbers only, but career has to be taken into consideration. I look at Wilt's averages per year and the things he did every year. Nobody's even come close to. Nobody's even sniffed.
Jordan took 2 years off of baseball and then came back and led a team to 72-10.
And he still couldn't do what Wilt did. Never averaged 50. Never averaged 40. Never had a 30-30 game. Never had a 40-40 game.
How many titles did Wilt win?
How many 8 Hall of Fame players on one team did Jordan play against?
How many Hall of Fame? What are you talking about? Those Lakers teams, the Phoenix Suns teams, the Utah Jazz teams. What are you talking about?
8 Hall of Famers on the roster.
Not 8 Hall of Famers, but those Lakers teams did in the 80s. The Celtics teams that he played against in the 80s that were constantly beating his ass. Celtics? Yeah, absolutely. The Pistons. Yes.
Name 5 Hall of Famers on any of those teams.
I couldn't name you 5 basketball Hall of Famers on any team.
Well, the Celtics had 8 guys. They had 3 guys come off the bench that went to the Hall of Fame Fame that were beating on Wilt Chamberlain. And the worst team that Bill Russell ever played for, I mean, the worst, most disgusting, gross team he ever played for had 6 Hall of Famers. They had a 6-man who went to the Hall of Fame on the worst team he played for.
How did Wilt beat those teams? How did Wilt play against in those teams?
I mean, sure. I mean, he averaged 30 against Russell, but just sheer dominant. He won 2 championships. Russell, I think, only missed out on 4, and 2 of them were to Wilt.
Okay. I don't argue. To me, I have Jordan 1, Wilt 2. So I'm like, I think it's a 1A, 1B conversation. Same way a lot of people argue with me about Barry Bonds and Babe Ruth. I think Barry Bonds is the GOAT. A lot of people have Babe Ruth as the GOAT. 1A, 1B. I'm fine with that.
And I think both of our 1A and 1B in both sports are the same. Like I have Babe and I have Wilt, and you have Bonds and you have Jordan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, can we talk about some common greats right now? I was talking to Wayne earlier. In my town, we're gonna have the hockey MVP and the NBA MVP, both in my city. I love it.
You know, God, I hate the Avalanche so much. I really do. I've never been a fan of the Avalanche. I'm a big Blackhawks guy, obviously, but just even back in the day with Patrick Waugh and all those guys, Forsberg, all those guys, man, I hated Colorado so much because I think it's like Yankees syndrome, right? Like you just hate them because they win all the damn time. I think that's the reason why I started hating them so much. And then they become a rival of the Blackhawks throughout the years. But yeah, no, man, Colorado, Denver is looking good. I mean, football wise, maybe not so much, but everywhere else, you guys are looking pretty good.
Yeah, that's what I'm hanging my hat on right now.
That was the last topic I'll bring up because we are up against it. So we're going to skip a few topics, but I want to get to the NIL because I know this is something that, for me anyways, I'm an expert on the NIL. I had to educate Sully because he didn't know how it works. So I had to explain it to him 3 times before he got it. But I wanted to ask your understanding, Brandon, of how the NIL works. Like, how would you say it works in terms of colleges recruiting players?
First things first, I'm gonna bet you $100 right now. It's not the only thing you've ever had to explain to Sully more than one time. You're not taking the bet, are you? But anyway, I look the NIL. Wait, what was your question? What was the question you asked me? I'm sorry.
I said, can you explain to me how the NIL works in terms of how colleges recruit players?
So they get a certain amount of money that they're allowed to spend in NIL deals. I do know that was one of the things for Calipari was he was going to be given like $6 million to spend in NIL money or something like that. And I know that also it's something weird about like you have to be American born, like you can't be from another country to come over and get NIL money. And it's made the transfer portal kind of crazy, to be honest with you. It's not as much as a free agency as a lot of people think that it is. There's a lot of nuances to it that to be honest with you, I probably don't even know. But the NIL is basically allowing students to make money off of their name, image, and likeness, which is something that should have been done a very long time ago. But it's also evolved into something where teams are also allowed to give students a certain stipend as well. What that stipend is, I couldn't tell you. My guess would be that it varies per player and per talent. As it should anyway. I mean, that's the way the world works anyway. If you're better than me at something, you get paid more than I do. But for me, I guess to answer your question, that's basically the way the NIL works. It allows players to make money off their name, image, and likeness, and allows, the schools to give them a certain amount in a stipend.
Mark,
but then there's teams out there that. Okay, yeah. But then there's it's kind of like in baseball, sort of in a way, that there's only going to be certain teams out there that'll have the money to pay for these players, right? Like you said, Calipari is going to have $6 million to give away at Arkansas.
That's what I heard. I don't know how true that is.
Say what?
Well, that's what I heard. I don't know the exact numbers on it.
Okay, well, it's just I have a lot of questions about this NIL stuff too. I heard today here locally that Deion Sanders is having a dinner, like an expensive dinner, where you can pay to sit at his table. Everything costs a certain amount. And apparently all this money is going to go towards the team and towards NIL. Because then I also know that earlier, a few months back, Prime Sanders came out and said that Colorado wasn't the place if teams were looking for, if players were looking for NIL money. But then they're having this dinner. So I don't understand. You tell me, Brandon. Like, do we have that on? Was he saying this that they didn't have money so he gets the good players, like the ones that are true for the sport, or like I don't understand. Like, why would he say that and then do another thing?
Yeah, that I really don't know. I mean, I doubt I would probably defer to Wayne because he probably knows a little bit more about this.
Yeah, the NIL is definitely my area of expertise, and I can explain how it works, which is that colleges aren't allowed to pay the players anything. They are allowed, like you said, a stipend. That's always been around. That's been around since forever. They've always been able to give them like $150 a month or $200. It's not a lot, but it's enough to, like, get some pizza every now and then or whatever. It's not a major amount. The colleges can't pay the players anything to go there. They're not allowed to. The NIL, the way it works, like Brandon said, it's name, image, and likeness. You can market yourself and get paid for that. And what they do is these universities have boosters who own businesses like John's Mattress Outlet or Tony's Chevrolet or whatever it is. And what they do is they say, hey, well, if this kid goes to that university, we're going to give him an NIL deal for $1 million, whatever, to market my mattresses or my Chevys. And that's how they make money on it. Here's the kicker. They're not allowed to say, we'll give you this money if you come to this school. They have to say, we're just going to give you this money to, advertise for us. And that's how the kids get paid. So when I say I had to educate Sully thought the universities were paying these kids, and he thought, well, Ohio State has more money. Well, that's only because they have more boosters who are willing to, use these kids as endorsements. But the school's not allowed to pay them, and even the endorsers aren't allowed to say that their money is contingent on them going to that university.
So then this dinner, though, so if he's having this dinner and it's supposed to be for the athletic program and supposedly NIL, but he's not allowed to say it's for NIL, is that what it's really for?
If he says it's for the athletic program, he can use the money there to buy weights or whatever. It really depends on who's hosting the dinner. He's not the one hosting the dinner. It can be like Deion Sanders is here. He's the main attraction. Come meet him, eat a table with him. But it could be, again, John's Mattress dinner, meet Deion Sanders. And then John's Mattress takes that money and gives it to the kids.
It's interesting. Loopholes.
Yeah. But anyways, I brought it up because I know there are a lot of people who feel like the NIL is ruining college sports, college football, college basketball. I actually love it. Like Brandon said, I've been in favor of the NIL for a long time. I actually wrote a piece for Man Hour a while back called Modern Day Slavery, saying that college athletes were modern day slaves. And it was basically because the university was making money off of them and they weren't getting anything from, they were literally slaves. They were doing all the work and the university is making all the money. But now they make money. I'm happy for it. And if a kid wants to transfer 3 times and go to 3 different universities, good for him. Whatever.
Baseball owners are so jealous. they wish that it ran this way. It's look, especially in college sports, the athletes should always have been able to make money off their name, image, and likeness. There's no way you should be able to create a video game or sell a jersey with a kid's name, number, or his image on a video game without paying him something. It should never happen. It used to be if you gave a kid a $1 to go get a burger off the McDonald's dollar menu, all of a sudden he could lose his scholarship. Like, that's insanity to me. And the NIL, I think, has a lot of good things that it's done. I do think they need to find a way to limit the transfer portal, though. I think the transfer portal has gotten way out of hand.
I think that the NCAA actually also used to tell the kids they weren't allowed to have jobs during the school year.
Yeah.
So they could only work during the summer.
Yeah. And they're not allowed to work during their season either. So, like, it was like, okay, what do you want these kids to do? And a lot of these talents, I mean, look, a lot of your inner city talent, they're not coming from rich families. They're not coming from a lot of the stuff. So when you offer them stuff, yeah, of course they're going to take it. But to take that away from the kid, or his family or things that he was promised. It was never sitting right with me. So I'm with Wayne when it comes to the NIL for sure.
All right. Well, that is.
I got one last
Mark.
thing though about the NIL. I kind of feel in some way that it kind of hurts these players, these young players' development, because a lot of the things I hear, like a lot of the reason why like Saban quit and other coaches in basketball quit, because they try to recruit these kids, and the very first thing that comes out of their mouth is, how much am I going to make and how much playing time am I going to get? And I just think that's the whole wrong way of thinking of it. It's like, why don't you want to go to a place that's a really good school like Alabama, just for example, and you develop yourself and you become better. You're not just going to jump on a team and get paid all this money. Like, I don't understand this entitlement that these players have now. I don't understand that. And that's what I don't like.
Well, I will say this about it, which is devil's advocate, right? Is when I'm 18 years old and I walk into McDonald's, my first questions are, how much money am I going to get and what hours can I work, right? And I'm 18 years old. The only difference is I'm not making $1 billion for McDonald's myself, and these kids are making $1 billion for their university. So I have no problem with them asking the same question I would ask at McDonald's.
Yes, I agree. Same thing. I've always said it with baseball. When people talk about baseball players get paid too much money, I say false. The owners get paid too much money. Baseball players generate just about, I'd say, 90% of the revenue, if not 100% of the revenue. I've never gone to a game and seen a fan wearing the GM or the owner's jersey. So we're not there to see the GM. We're not there to see the owner. We're there to see the players, and we're not buying the concessions if we're not there to see the players. We're not, we're not. There's no need for them to pay electric bills if we're not coming to see the players, because nobody's in the stadium. Like, so to me, the players don't get paid enough. And it's the same. It's always been the same way in college sports.
In fact, here's a great statistic that I threw out there on Facebook that is fantastic to me, which is the short-sightedness of the statement. Is if you took Tiger Woods' net worth and he were to put it in the middle of a table, Tiger Woods, Lionel Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, all five of them put all of their net worth and all of their money in the middle of a table, they're worth less than David Tepper.
That's crazy. All right. So can I ask you a question not related to football? I want to ask you a baseball related topic. Did you see the stuff with the Orioles challenging Nolan Schanuel's his on base streak? It was kept alive because a play was ruled a hit in a game where the Orioles were winning 13-2. And a week later, the Orioles challenged it and said that they should be giving their first baseman an error as opposed to giving the guy a hit. In a 13-2 game, taking away that guy's on base streak. MLB agrees with them, overturns the call. What did you think of that?
I'm always in favor of getting the call right.
It was the wrong call.
Well, if it's the wrong call, then
I read about it, and
yeah, it was the wrong call. But the MLB still overturned the call, took the kids on base streak away. And not only that, but like a week later stat change. This isn't golf. You get to call in and just change the rule.
And I'll let Mark give his
Brandon,
piece on it.
I think baseball, it does everything ass backwards anyway. So that doesn't surprise me at all.
They're very fuddy-duddy for sure.
Well, and what I was going to say is that, like I said, I'm always in favor of getting it right. I know you're saying they got it wrong, and if they did, then I'm not in favor of that. But I'm saying, like, let's say hypothetically that it was actually an error, right? And a week later, in a 13-2 game, they end the kid's streak because the Orioles wanted to be petty, right?
Yeah.
But if it was the right call, then I'm okay with taking it away because they just wanted to correct the call, and I'm fine with that. But if they did it and baseball overturned it and it was the wrong call, that's just stupid. I don't know why even.
I don't know what the Orioles' reason is, because again, it's not like it didn't change it. They were up 13-2. Not only that, but you're taking away a hit from the other team and giving an error to your player, so you're hurting his stats. Like it doesn't add up to. There was something there. I don't know what it is, and I haven't heard the Orioles speak on why they challenged it a week later, or why anybody was even still thinking about it a week later after you won the game 13-2. Is beyond me. Like there's something there. I just don't know what it is.
Well, I've been saying it for years. You've heard me say this for over a decade. Bring on the robots, people.
Hey, robots, it's been time. Automated strike zones has been time. And if you can watch one game where CB Buckner or Angel Hernandez is behind the plate and tell me that after that game that you watch that game and it's not time for automated strike zones, then you're never going to have your mind swayed.
Well, I do want to say thank you, everybody who tuned in, and thank you, Brandon, for joining the show. It's always a great time to throw it back and forth with you, and Mark got to experience you firsthand and just really appreciate my greatness, I think, at another level, seeing me go up against you.
Yeah, well, I mean, he agreed with me a lot, so I might we might have him on as a third party on Windy City Sports Talk soon.
Mark, any final
as long as I get to talk some Denver sports, I'm cool with that.
yeah, we could talk Denver sports. We could talk about Broncos country. Let's ride.
No, none of that. None of that, Brandon.
All right. Well, hey, thanks everybody for tuning in. Listen on Spotify. If you are listening on Spotify, tune into the live show. We're interactive. Nobody put in any comments. You could have gotten your name up on the screen. Well, maybe next week. Hey, party on, everybody.
Party on, Brandon.